Good evening, it's Adil Faral, market analyst for CFDs.com, a leading spread betting and a CFD broker. Be sure to visit www.cfds.com for further information, or alternatively you can visit the educational page, which is www.cfds.education, to learn more. Okay, bringing you a review of the FTSE 100 for the day's trading. As we are currently at present, we are trading in anticipation for the FOMC, as we all know, or very well know, with regards to the price action today. Okay, so let's go over fundamentals before we discuss exactly where the FTSE is positioned and the next move in this market. Now, the Asian markets had a stellar rally overnight. We had the Shanghai up almost 5%. Very impressive. The Nikkei was certainly higher as well. So it was all about the Shanghai and China going into the FOMC meeting, as opposed to them obviously whether they're going to hold or whether they're going to cut, etc. So that's something that we're going to well, not hold, or should we say raise the actual interest rate. So I'll discuss that in due time. For now, the US markets obviously finished quite stellar on the back of China, and the European markets certainly had a stellar rally too. Okay, so fundamentals with regards to the FTSE 100. Let's start by looking at the daily chart of the FTSE 100. Let's bring that up for you. Okay, here we go. So the daily chart, very impressive for into that resistance zone at 6250. But let's certainly try and discuss exactly what led the FTSE higher. So number one, we had the obviously Chinese markets up higher overnight. Then we had obviously the uncertainty, or should we say, let's try and put it into pros and cons. So in terms of the bullish arguments for the FTSE 100, were the Chinese markets up by almost plus 5% overnight. So obviously that's indicated bullish. Then we had stronger data in terms of the US employment, in terms of average earnings, certainly impressive today. Average weekly earnings, including bonuses, were up by 2.9%, higher than expected. Claimant count obviously came in well. Unemployment rate came in lower than expected. So the economic numbers out of the UK certainly very impressive, okay, overall. So that certainly led the markets to move higher as well. Also, with regards to the CPI out in the US, that was actually lower than anticipated, lower than expected. So therefore, that led the individuals to believe that the Fed would not be as hawkish as everybody's expecting, and obviously the markets have overpriced that hawkishness, especially with Chinese markets higher overnight as well. Then we had a late rally on the price of oil, up to $47 from 44 up to 47, so that certainly led the FTSE 100 higher as well. And then we had the SAB Miller deal as well. Okay, so there are a number of factors that caused the actual FTSE 100 to certainly propel higher. Now, I did actually go long at one point, and obviously I did well, but the FTSE 100 on the short side, I was stopped out later on this evening. So the market has had quite a stellar rally with regards to the FTSE 100. Now, the counter arguments for the FTSE going higher were obviously with regards to the Fed, the uncertainty regarding the decision of whether they're going to cut rates or not, and markets hate uncertainty. And the additional argument against the FTSE 100 was the comments from the BOE member, who stated that the actual indications or the next move with regards to the interest rate cycle in the UK is actually going to be higher. So that certainly put a very bearish slant on the actual market itself, although that was negated by the SAB Miller, and the SAB Miller response says the company is open to discussing potential AB InBev offers. So that obviously put a rocket up the FTSE, and that sent the FTSE 100 higher as well, along with the obviously the CPI data, and obviously the oil prices rallying quite late in the session as well. So it certainly seems that the oil price or the commodities are certainly expecting a potential pause or a delay, or even dovish tone with regards to the Fed. Because as we can see here, the dollar was collapsing. So if I just bring up a chart, the US dollar, if I have that here we go. So you can see a collapse on the dollar today, and the dollar collapsed, and what exactly happened? The FTSE 100 certainly started to propel higher very impressively, as you can see here. So We had a gap down the dollar index itself, and the dollar index continued to plunge and move lower, and that obviously helped the actual FTSE 100 to move higher. If I bring up a chart of oil, and I can show you the actual rally on oil as well. If I bring up crude oil, you can see there it's quite a stellar rally. I mean, we had this resistance zone at 46, we took that out as well. You had a resistance zone at 45, we took that out as well. So after building this base, the oil price certainly has rallied higher, and that's obviously led to the FTSE rally as well. Okay, what's going to happen now, given the fact that the fundamentals I've explained, you have hawkish comments from the BOE. On top of that, you have the uncertainty regarding the FOMC, and the bullish news from China, from the average earnings certainly has been factored into the market now. And you have BOE Carney saying the UK economy momentum is solid. BOE's Carney, BOE tightening is likely to be longer and shallower than previously thought, or previously thought. So economic fundamentals suggest solid UK growth. BOE's Forbes interest rates will need increase in the not too distant future to ensure inflation doesn't overshoot targets. So any hawkish comments like that certainly are negative for the FTSE 100, but given the fact that the SAB Miller and plus the oil deal, or oil price moving higher quite substantially, that certainly sent a rocket up the FTSE towards this towards the end of the session in the FTSE 100. Okay, now let's try and discuss exactly what's going to happen next with regards to the FTSE and the next potential move. Okay, so let's try and observe and try to understand here. Okay, so we basically have the weekly chart first of all. I'll try and break this down. You're still within the inside bar, so the upper bar is 6246, so therefore we are looking for a potential inside bar. If we break above that, then it certainly is bullish and it opens up the channel, the possibility of 6350. If 6350 is taken out, then the next channel you're looking at, a next potential resistance zone, is going to be in the 6500 region, and we'll see exactly how the market reacts with regards to that. Now if I bring up the fib retracement tool here, you are into the 50% fib at 6290, 61% is certainly possible, and 75% fib is possible as well, but that will be very, very dependent upon the actual move with regards to the actual Federal Reserve, whether or not they hike rates or not. Now as you can see on the weekly chart, you certainly have a very high probability here of a bearish pattern. As you can see, the left shoulder is in. We pull lower, we're just consolidating now, and then obviously looking to make a lower high, then obviously subsequently make a lower low. So it certainly doesn't bode well with regards to the FTSE 100 on the weekly chart, even though short term we are obviously whether this is a short covering a bear market rally, certainly time will tell. A daily chart of the FTSE 100, now we are back into this resistance zone at 6250. If that zone gets taken out, then the next zone that we're going to go into is 6280, and those two zones are going to be very, very important with regards to the FTSE 100. Now looking at the fib retracement ratios, again you are into that 50% fib, so 6270 level is very, very crucial. We need to close above that. If we close above that, then the next level that opens up to us based on this chart is 6380, where previous support equals resistance at 6430. So those are the two zones that we are looking at now. I was expecting, or I think we were all expecting, this bear flag formation to play out and obviously make a lower low, and that hasn't been the case. Whether that's on the basis of obviously the Fed not cutting or delaying due to the Chinese concerns that we've seen in the previous weeks, again, that's up to your analysis. For now, that's the situation from a price action perspective, and obviously trying to amalgamate that with fundamentals too. 60-minute chart of the FTSE 100, we've certainly broken out this bearish channel. We took out that resistance zone at 6190 very, very impressively. We took out the next resistance zone at 6212 very, very impressively, and which I was expecting to hold today, by the way, and obviously I got stopped out. And the next resistance zone is 6250. If that fails, and 6280 is the next resistance zone for the FTSE 100. But for now, we certainly have broken out, and 6280 remains your pivot point. The 10-minute chart on the FTSE 100 certainly seems to have pulled back. I did short the market around this 6215, 6216 level, only for it to fall back to 6205. And then obviously the SAB Miller news obviously sent this market along with crude certainly screaming higher, very, very impressively, given the fact that US markets have screamed higher too. That's the situation we find ourselves on the 10-minute chart. The 5-minute chart, certainly, again, it's all about previous resistance equals support. So if you take out 6230, then you are looking at 6205. If we take 6205, if we take that out, then you are looking at 6170. potential support here at 6175 as well. So those are the two zones basically that we are observing for now. The volatility index is very important because the daily chart is showing you that previous resistance equals support, so therefore the volatility index certainly is into support, so therefore that's bearish for the FTSE 100. Okay, so that's certainly something to observe going forward. We are in the next zone here, which is 17.22. That will be your key support zone. Certainly have taken out that support zone for now. We are in no man's land. We'll see exactly how the market opens up. Given the fact that the FTSE is up quite stellar overnight, this may well gap down. Once it goes into this 17.2 level, 17.3 level, then it certainly is bearish for the FTSE 100 because we are into support with regards to the FTSE volatility index. FTSE All Share again is into horizontal resistance, very similar to the FTSE. FTSE Euro Stocks again is into horizontal resistance, so this is an important resistance point, and very similar to the FTSE 100. You have the FTSE Euro Top 100, FTSE Europe itself. We are into resistance, previous support equals resistance as well, so therefore indicating resistance for the FTSE. FTSE 250 again, same concept. We are into resistance. We are into horizontal resistance. This resistance zone certainly seems to be holding. Previous support is holding below there. Okay, oil prices themselves are looking at a 4-hour chart so you can get a better perspective, and you are coming into horizontal resistance on oil too. Daily chart on oil will show you again you are consolidating and you are thrusting higher, but then one has to ask themselves whether this can be sustained. So again, it's all about the Fed. If the FOMC any type of hawkishness, then obviously oil prices go dovish any dovish stance, etc., then obviously oil prices certainly continue to propel higher. So again, it's subjective and it's based on the actual FOMC and the movement there. Sterling itself certainly has pushed higher or held that double bottom. So again, I think that's going to be interesting as in terms of exports, whether or not that starts to propel higher. If you're looking at a chart of copper, the daily chart still remains bullish because we have the inverted head and shoulders formation. Obviously that's bullish for the FTSE 100. The 4-hour chart itself is showing some type of exhaustion, so that's something that we need to keep an eye on. And again, in terms of the next move on the FTSE 100 itself, you are coming into this resistance zone here on copper, so therefore one needs to be very cautious with regards to the next move on the FTSE 100, given the fact that oil prices are obviously into resistance as well. Looking at a chart of gold, as you know, it's always important with regards to gold because of the inverse relationship it has with regards to the dollar, and that itself is showing you some signs of a potential reversal. So again, it does indicate to you we may well get a dovish stance from the Fed, given the fact that copper and gold are both in the inverted head and shoulders pattern, and also given the fact that oil certainly seems to be turning higher as well. But again, it's all dependent. I mean, if we get a China sell-off overnight again by another 2 to 3%, then the situation, the game changes immediately. So it's a fluid, very fluid for now. That's what I can say. Daily chart of Aussie and the Kiwi again important because we are into resistance. As you can see, we're into that gap fill resistance. We certainly have rallied in anticipation of short covering going into the FOMC, and whether or not that sustains itself. The Kiwi at the moment is getting clobbered because the GDP data came out lower than expected. Obviously that's not good for oil or commodities, and we'll see exactly how that ends up overnight, but for now it certainly isn't looking good. We are testing that previous support or previous resistance equals support region. Daily chart still remains bearish because we are into that we are still consolidating or bearish consolidation, given the fact that obviously the RBNZ, Royal Bank of New Zealand, certainly cut rates recently, which certainly surprised a lot of individuals. Okay, and they do remain very dovish going forward as well because every individual is playing the currency war game. Okay, so for now certainly does remain bearish on there, and again that's dictated by China too. So going back to the FTSE 100, your resistance zone, I'll just go over them again just to give you some insight as to Monday's, or shall we say Thursday's trading going into the FOMC and the uncertainty that surrounds that. You are looking at 6250 to 6280 as solid resistance. If those resistance zones get taken out, then obviously you are looking higher, much higher, up to 6400, even potentially 6500. Daily chart itself, again, keep respecting that daily chart because you have got resistance at 6250 to 6280, and we'll see exactly how the market responds. Okay, that's a wrap with regards to FTSE 100. Risk on, risk off, wax on, wax off. Be sure to visit cfds.com and the educational page as well. Goodbye.